Hello everybody and welcome back to Dollar Tree Dinners and welcome to day 3 of Souptober. This is a series where I am doing 10 different soups in the month of October. For those of you who have already heard this, feel free to double tap your way through this intro. For anybody who is just now tuning in, I printed out 10 different soup recipes. Every day I am picking one soup at random. I will go through my fridge, freezer, and pantry, see what ingredients I already have, try to pick up the remaining ingredients as cheaply as possible, then come back, make the soup, and try the soup. And it did include some gluten-free and dairy-free recipes as well. So it's day 3, so we are down to just 8 soups. Let's go ahead and shuffle them up just like before. Let's see what Destiny has in store for us for day 3. So we're going to a random number picker. And now we're down to 8 soups, so let's reset that to 1 through 8 and generate, and it picked number 8. So whatever is on the bottom of this stack, I don't need to count through it because there's only 8 soups in here. So what is on the bottom? We have butternut squash soup. All right. So this recipe I got from allrecipes.com, and I picked this one specifically because of the simplicity of the ingredients. However, I do want to make one tweak to the recipe based on other recipes that I saw online. So this one calls for butter, onion, celery, carrots, 2 potatoes, 1 butternut squash, 4 cups of chicken stock, and then salt and pepper. So this one is also gluten-free and dairy-free. Let's see what we've got. I know I have the majority of these ingredients already, so this one is going to be extremely inexpensive to make. So we know we've got butter. Let's go ahead and grab that out. And I actually only have 1 onion left, which is perfect. So we're gonna use this one up today, and that is my last onion in my vegetable bin here. As you can see, I don't have any potatoes, so I do need to buy those. Celery, we bought that yesterday. Perfect. I don't have any carrots. I only bought 1 yesterday, so I'll have to buy another one today, but I do already have the squash. So squash was on sale last week at Food Lion for 99 cents a pound, so I did go ahead. I actually have 2, but we're only gonna be using 1 for this recipe. Whenever you do see butternut squash on sale, do not hesitate to pick up a couple though, because it will last for a very long time. I have heard of people keeping butternut squash for well over a year and it doesn't go bad. Chicken stock, we're definitely just gonna swap for some bouillon powder and then salt and pepper. So the only thing I need to buy is carrots and potatoes to make this soup. I did already have the squash though, and I don't want to seem like that's cheating because it was already in my fridge, but if you were to buy the squash, they are still on sale for 99 cents a pound, and I just weighed this one and it was 3.5 pounds. So that means that this would have been $3.50. My carrot was 28 cents today, and Food Lion had these 5-pound bags of gold potatoes on sale for $2.50. So I spent $2.80, but I already had the squash, so add an extra $3.50 onto that. That would put us at, so even if I had to buy the squash, it would put me around $6.30 for this Souptober day 3. So I'm doing this one a little bit differently. I'm using the all recipes mostly for the ingredients and the ratios, but I'm going to change the cooking method quite a bit in order to enhance the flavors a good bit as well. I'm going to take this one step further and I'm going to roast all of the vegetables so that it has that really nice toasty flavor. One update on yesterday's broccoli cheese soup. In the past, when I have bought broccoli cheese soup or made broccoli cheese soup, it's usually really good the first day, but then the next day when you go to reheat it, especially in the microwave, it has a tendency to turn very soupy, very liquidy. I believe because this was a gluten-free version, it didn't have flour in it. Instead, it was thickened with cornstarch, plus it had the Velveeta processed cheese. It reheated perfectly. It was almost better the next day. So if you have that issue with your broccoli cheese soup just turning into liquid the next day, try that gluten-free recipe. That might solve your problems. This is my first time ever cooking a butternut squash. So I don't even know if my vegetable peeler is strong enough for the task of peeling this thing, but I'm gonna start by cutting off the ends. And then let's see. Oh, she's thick. Okay. What is my best way to peel this? Let me watch a video on how to peel a butternut squash real quick. So the vegetable peeler that I have may not be the best for the job. But it seems like you're supposed to cut this little knobby bit off the end. I did the right thing by cutting the top and bottom off, but goodness, this is hard. Okay. And then hopefully I can just kind of, there we go. Okay. That gives me something better to grip onto. So I am switching to a knife for peeling the squash. And yes, that means that I am going to lose some of the squash meat, but at least for me, it's much easier on my hands. And I am all ears if you have any tips or suggestions on peeling a squash, because this is turning out to be a lot more challenging than I thought it was going to be. All right, well, that was a bit of a process, but we did successfully get our squash peeled. And next we're going to cut out the seeds and the membrane that are holding the seeds in place. And I'm sure that you can roast squash seeds just like you can roast pumpkin seeds, which if that's the case, I might have to look it up while I'm roasting all of these vegetables because I'm curious. Butternut squash, I've seen it topped with pumpkin seeds. So I'll have to look up if squash seeds are edible because I'm kind of curious about why they would use pumpkin seeds and not squash seeds if you're already seeding a squash. I guess it could be that they're not edible. Are butternut squash seeds edible? Yes, butternut squash seeds are edible and nutritious and can be eaten in many ways. So I'm going to attempt to make some roasted butternut squash seeds. That'll be the bonus for this episode. So the bonus for yesterday's episode was the sandwich that I made, sort of like a version of Panera's Chipotle chicken avocado melt. And I guess the bonus for this episode is going to be roasted butternut squash seeds. So let me go and separate all of these like little membranes. And I guess there's also a way you could potentially use the squash peels. I should look into that as well. Let's see. How to get the most from your butternut squash. I already threw away some of the peel. I'm sorry. How to roast and harvest the squash seeds and skin. So we are on the right track with all of this. So I guess you can make chips out of the skins. Might as well try it, right? Although I left the sticker on because I wasn't expecting to be able to use the skin for anything. I'm gonna put this all in a colander and wash it really well. So seeds and skin have been very well washed. And then it says to pat them dry. Alrighty. Should be good. Let's toss those back into the bowl. Then it says to toss the seeds and skin with oil, salt, pepper, and any other spices that you want. I'll go ahead and keep it fairly simple. I like the suggestion of paprika, so I'm just gonna do oil, some paprika for color and flavor, along with some salt and pepper. Give those a toss to make sure everything's coated. And then I will roast those at the same time that I'm roasting everything else because I'm gonna be roasting all the vegetables to make my soup. So it's not gonna be any extra energy, like I'm not gonna be turning on my oven just to make seeds. But since I am going through the process of roasting my vegetables, I might as well test this out at the same time. My cutting board looks like a crime scene after cutting that squash. But now we're gonna dice it up. So that's what $3.50 worth of squash looks like. It is a pretty good amount of vegetables for the price. I'm going to peel my carrot. And for the carrot, I'm just gonna cut it into kind of even sized pieces to match up with the size pieces of the squash. Let's do the same with our onion. I've never made this soup before, but if you were to ask me, 1 onion and 1 carrot doesn't quite seem like enough of either of them, but I'm sure that the flavors are supposed to be very subtle and not really compete with the butternut squash in any way. And 1 stalk of celery. A lot of vegetable prep on this one, but the next thing I'm gonna do is peel 2 of my gold potatoes. There's my peeling technique that I get a lot of suggestions to do it this way. That's just not easier for me than the way I do it. This is very muscle memory for me, and I don't mind doing it this way. Once my potatoes are peeled, I like to rinse them just to make sure that they're nice and clean. And we're gonna cut that also into about the same size pieces as our squash. Let's get our oven preheating to 425. I'm gonna add a really hefty drizzle of oil. We don't want things kind of sticking. I will also use parchment paper. We're gonna season everything really liberally with salt and pepper too. And we're gonna get that all tossed to coat. This really is the perfect time to be making a soup like this because all of these ingredients are on sale right now, at least at my grocery store, so hopefully they're also on sale at yours. I'm gonna grab a large sheet pan here. And I'm gonna line it with a sheet of parchment paper just as like an added precaution from sticking. And there goes our vegetables for roasting. Spread them out onto an even layer. You may need to use 2 sheet pans depending on the size of your squash, your vegetables, and the size of your sheet pan in general. But it looks like I am good with just 1. And then on a second smaller sheet pan, I'm gonna go down with my squash seeds and skin. And those will get roasted all together. Let's pop in our tray of vegetables on the bottom rack and our seeds and skins on the top rack. That way the tray of vegetables is in closest contact with the heat so it can get really nice and roasty. I'm gonna go and set a timer. I'm gonna start with 25 minutes and then we might toss the vegetables, see what they're looking like. We're also gonna check on the skins and the seeds and see what they're looking like. But I'll give it 25 minutes and check on it. It's only been about 15 minutes, but I can hear the little seeds and they're kind of popping and crackling. So I think they're almost done. I'm gonna toss them real quick just to make sure that they roast evenly. Definitely getting some toastiness on these little skins here, so that's fun. They do look like chips. Curious to see what they're gonna taste like. Some of them might already be done, because some of them are smaller than the others, but I'm gonna go ahead and toss them back in there for another 10 minutes or so. I love being able to use every part of the squash. I think I'm gonna pop out the seeds because I'm sure they're done at this point. They might be a little overdone, but we'll see. We're gonna let those cool completely because they will crisp up as they cool. In the meantime, it's been about 22 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and toss my vegetables. I am aiming for about 45 to 50 minutes total on these just to get them the color that I want. I am just gonna give those a very light toss and then we're gonna toss them back in for another 25 minutes or so. So about 45 to 50 minutes total. Give that a little shimmy shake and pop it back in there. Oh no. So it's been a few hours. I am currently editing the butternut squash footage and something happened with my audio, something happened with my mic. I was trying to turn off my microphone in between certain things just to save the battery. And as I'm reviewing the footage, something happened when I turned it back on to finish the video. And it is really, really, really choppy. Like beyond the point of repair. The audio is just cutting in and out. It's a lot louder than it should be. There's a lot of issues going on. I feel like maybe I jiggled the cord whenever I turned it back on or something. I don't know what happened. For the majority of the video, it's fine. Obviously, up until this point, it's fine. And for the remainder of the video, I can just do a voiceover explaining how I prepared the soup. But the real struggle comes in at the end where I'm trying to taste test and review the soup. I am gonna have to leave that audio original because that is a review part of the video and I don't want to voice over that. So I just wanna give you guys a heads up. The rest of the directions are going to be voiceover. After that, I will do the review, but that audio is going to be extremely choppy. I will put subtitles on it to make it easier to understand what I'm saying, but I do apologize. I do not know what happened. Hopefully these kind of fixes will at least work for this video. I do also want to mention that Souptober Day 4 is going to be 1 day delayed. I have to go run some errands with Michael tomorrow, so I won't be able to film it. I'm going to film Day 4 on Friday, and that will be posted on Saturday. But thank you guys for bearing with me through this technical difficulty. Enjoy the rest of the video as much as you can, despite the audio issues. While my vegetables finished, I got my pot preheated over medium heat. I added 2 tablespoons of butter and about a teaspoon of minced garlic. This was not in the recipe, but it was in several other squash soup recipes, so I just went ahead and added it in, and I let it kind of cook in the butter just until it was fragrant, about a minute or so. Then I added 4 cups of water and 4 teaspoons of chicken bouillon powder, and I let this just kind of simmer until the vegetables were ready. Which my vegetables did roast on the bottom rack for about 45 minutes or so. And as you can see, they don't have a ton of color. That is because of the parchment paper, because they're not in direct contact with the metal, but that does make for a lot of easier cleanup, and that roasted flavor is still part of the soup. So I transferred my vegetables into my pot with the stock and the garlic and the butter. And from here, you are going to want to blend the soup. Now, if you have like a standard blender, you can use that. You're just going to want to blend the soup in batches. I do have an immersion blender that I was sent by a subscriber, so I am going to be using that. And for the immersion blender, you're going to want to turn off the heat because you don't want this splattering all over your kitchen. And I just kind of go low and slow, and as you can see, I kind of move the blender up and down through the soup just to kind of make sure I'm breaking up all of those big chunks. This was looking a little thick for me, so I did add about 1 more cup of water and about 1 more teaspoon of chicken bouillon powder, but then our soup was ready to serve. I put this in a bowl and I topped it with some of my roasted butternut squash skins that I cut into strips, along with some of my roasted butternut squash seeds, and I served this with a grilled cheese sandwich on the side. This is squash soup in a way that I've never seen anybody present it before, because I've seen it topped with various forms of cream or milk, but never the skin and never the seeds of the squash itself. So we've made the most of the entire squash, and I feel like it's a really fun way to top the soup without having to buy anything extra. Let's try our butternut squash soup topped with roasted butternut skins and butternut seeds. I'm sorry, I just gotta take a moment to pat myself on the back for that one. That was such a fun idea and a perfect execution. Like, I couldn't change anything about the soup to make it better. The soup itself is nutty, it's roasty, it's got these warm fall flavors. It is the perfect texture. When I first bought the squash, I had no intention of using skin. The soup itself is very roasty, it is full of flavor. It is absolutely delicious. And then we topped it with such fun textures. Let's talk about these squash skins. They are not crispy. I mean, some of the thinner bits got a little bit crispier, but for the most part, they're just kind of lovely and chewy, kind of soft. And I'm really not quite sure how to compare the texture, but they're soft, they're chewy, they're lovely. And then you're coupling that with these roasty, nutty, crunchy squash seeds. The only caveat is that some of the seeds are not quite easy to chew. This reminds me of a slightly nuttier version of the roasted vegetable soup that I made during my $100 series, and it is perfect paired with a grilled cheese sandwich. And yet again, I have plenty of soup to have for lunch tomorrow. I don't have enough to make another grilled cheese, though, so I might have to figure out what kind of a sandwich combo I want to do with it. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and I will see you again tomorrow for Souptober Day 4.